So I was scrolling through TikTok and I was getting bombarded with John Cena memes.
冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。
Respect. No telling how long he'll be.
You know, China's social credit system memes.
Don't you feel?
And the classic China mukbang ASMR videos. Because nothing puts me to sleep like the sound of pig fat being slurped up.
一个视频喝完。
Anyway, TikTok is home to an unbelievable amount of Chinese propaganda. You may or may not know this already, but the Chinese government has farms of influencers and accounts meaning to guide or sometimes force your opinion on China.
Are you in the I Hate China club?
I think this is a real issue, to be honest. And I've done videos exposing this before. But anyway, these teachers that I've stumbled across are something else. I started to notice the absolute sheer amount of Chinese teachers wearing cheap, fake, traditional Chinese outfits, the kind of stuff that you'd buy on AliExpress or Alibaba, while teaching random words in Chinese. At first I thought to myself, why are there more than one of these? Then I realized not only are there one, but there's 3 and 5, and now, actually I ran into 10. No, now I've literally seen hundreds, maybe even thousands of these teachers. And they all follow the same formula. It took me a little while, but the story is the same on everyone that I saw. This wasn't a case of tons of different girls, maybe you just choose one like a different Pokemon, because that's just what you're into. No, this was the literal, exact same formula over and over and over again. And how it would be is, it'd be a girl in traditional Chinese uniform, or whatever cheap outfit they decide to put on that kind of looks Chinese to their foreign audience, and they hold up a white placard, and it will say, "Hi, my name is," some of them were called Lucky, Double, EE, Tracy, Mango, Tony, Katie, Ding Ding, Yo-Yo, Natalie, Hot Pot. I could literally go on forever, and that would just be the end of the video. It would literally just be me showing thousands of these teachers. But anyway, not only was their story the same, you know, holding up the same placard, it would say, "My name is blah, blah, blah. I'm a Chinese teacher and I'm gonna teach you Chinese on TikTok for free. Please support me." Not only was that story the same, so is really their content if you think about it. The more you dig, the more you realize that these channels are all just copies of each other. Chinese girl standing in front of blackboard teaching you a word. They're all the same. Even the vocabulary they taught was the same. I was wondering how many of these channels were gonna tell me to fuck off, but in the end, it was limitless.
Fuck off! Fuck off! 滚开
Fuck off, 滚.
Fuck off! 滚开 Fuck off! 滚蛋 You! Fuck off! 滚开滚开 Fuck off! Fuck off! 滚 You! Fuck off! 滚 You! Fuck off! 滚开
Fuck off. 滚开
Fuck off! 滚开滚开 You! Fuck off! Fuck off! 滚开 You! Fuck off! 滚开 Fuck off! 滚开 You! Fuck off! 滚蛋
In fact, these channels were all teaching the exact same thing. They didn't just copy each other's kind of origin story. They didn't just copy each other's content. No, they started even copying each other's drama. Listen to how hilarious and ridiculous this one is. One of the OG original teachers, she taught people how to say 你敢, which means like, how dare you, basically.
你敢
And some people in the comments started to say that, hey, that sounds awfully like the N-word. Obviously just trolling her. So she made a crying video on TikTok where she said, "Hello, I'm Sunshine. I'm a Chinese teacher," and some people attacked me on TikTok. That's fine and all, but this little crying session netted her tons of views. And the drama also attracted the jealousy of the thousands of other carbon copy teachers out there. You see, it was a snowball effect. I noticed over time that video after video was popping up with a random Chinese teacher crying about how she got attacked. The thing is, they were crying about how they were getting attacked, but a lot of these teachers didn't even make that same video, you know, the N-word one, that would have attracted such drama. So they were really crying over nothing. In fact, what they were doing was learning from each other that if you did a crying video about getting attacked, that people would rush to your support and your views would go up. This girl even went as far to wonder what attacked her, not why. Was it human? Was it monster? Beast? Who knows? In the end, you end up with thousands of accounts that teach you fairly useless vocabulary and then cry to get views about an attack on them that never happened. Rinse and repeat. So, is that where it ends? No, because it might seem like this is harmless and leads to nothing, but that's where the live streams come into play. You see, my research was just beginning. On TikTok, you can go live. And in fact, that's what the ultimate goal for a lot of these accounts was. Here's the deal, little background. I speak Chinese. I lived in China for 10 years, and I know that there's bizarre trends. Like when all of a sudden it was really popular to go to the Shanghai Costco and pretend like you were in America. Yeah, that was a trend. In fact, I was there live streaming on Chinese internet when they banned eating cucumbers because they thought it was sexually suggestive. I in fact tried to get myself banned off the Chinese internet, and that's another story for another time. Anyway, I know these weird trends exist, so I wanted to look more into it, and I did find out that the live stream is where it all came to culmination. You see, on these live streams, these girls would get a lot of these gentlemen, we can say, that would come in there and they've already been watching a bunch of their videos and maybe have developed a bit of an attraction to them. And they would start talking about things like Taiwan. Is Taiwan a part of China? Do they eat dog meat in China? No, according to them, that's just a misconception. By the way, nearly every single town or city has dog meat restaurants in them, so do not listen to that fabrication. Anyway, what they were was weird gateways into propaganda. You know, you can say, I won't be affected. That stuff wouldn't touch me. And that's great, okay? I believe you. The thing is, there's nothing inherently wrong with learning Chinese. I mean, I speak Chinese. I really encourage people to actually go and learn Chinese. I think it's a great, great idea, and it's a great way to bring the world closer together. That being said, I just wanted you to know that despite a lot of these women having not nefarious intents to teach you Chinese or anything like that, it's important that we know the kind of propaganda that is trying to push on the English-speaking world, because it's very important that we can delineate the difference between the Chinese people and the Chinese government's message. And it's fantastic to interact with Chinese media, and it's fantastic to try to understand China. But just be careful about the stuff that's being targeted at you to make you think that a palatable genocidal government that's an authoritarian one is better than your own, or that you live in a doomed society in a doomed failed state and that China is the better alternative, because that's really the ultimate goal of what China's trying to do. And there's for sure like really legitimate awesome Chinese teachers here. For example, this dude, he even answered straight up on live that Taiwan was not in fact China. He said, no, I'm from China, not Taiwan. I really appreciated that. You don't hear that kind of stuff usually. But the sheer amount of this propaganda that is thrown at people means that it will change some people's minds. And that's the goal of Beijing. That is the goal of the Chinese government. And that's their approach. If you throw enough shit at the wall, eventually something will stick. I mean, here's an example of a girl that's talking about the plight of homelessness in America. Fair enough. The problem is that she tells complete bald-faced lies that there's social welfare in China and that the person that ends up homeless gets sent freely back to their hometown where they can go to a shelter and get food and drink. I mean, this is insanity if you know China.
如果你看到一个流浪汉，你是可以直接给警察打电话，你打110，然后警察来了以后会把他送到火车站，然后火车站会给他一张免费的到他的家乡的火车票，然后等他到了家乡以后，他的家乡会有一些救助站，然后救助站会给他吃的喝的，如果他是没有家人的话，会给他办一个低保，所以你在中国的街上你是不会看到流浪汉的，中国的街上你是不会看到流浪汉的。
But if you don't know China, then you're gonna watch this and say, you know what, maybe they have everything sorted out there. And it will permeate consciousness. Not everyone is a China watcher. Not everyone is super tuned in. So think about it like this. Let me give an example. And this might not be you, but think about a guy, we'll call him Mr. Simpleton. Emphasis on the simp. An undereducated working class guy from some small town in the USA, and he sees these Chinese girls every day on TikTok as he's scrolling after work, and he pays them no mind. But then one day he sees one that says, "fuck off" in the thumbnail. It's got a Chinese girl with some interesting traditional clothes that she probably got on Taobao. And he says, "ah hell, what's this?" Next thing you know, he thinks she's kinda cute. He starts watching her live shows. She starts talking about how Taiwan is a part of China and how it's all Western media bias and propaganda, and there is absolutely no forced labor or genocide in Xinjiang. And she starts talking about how your country, the USA, has so many issues, while the Chinese government actually takes care of its citizens and doesn't have issues with homelessness or drugs or bipartisan politics. And guess what? China just doesn't bully other countries like the evil USA does. You see, that's the thing. So that might not pertain to you, but I've seen it work. You see, not that long ago, there was this thing going around that said you can't call the Chinese government the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. That's what kind of colloquially it's been, whether it's within American politics or just people talking about it on the street. Instead, you have to call it the CPC. You know why? Well, the Chinese government was looking to rebrand. Although the CPC is technically one of the actual correct names of the government, they wanted to get rid of that pesky colloquial name, the CCP, because they were looking for a rebrand. Think about it like this. When you search for CPC instead of the CCP, it's gonna be the propaganda that China has recently curated, rather than the historical stuff like the Great Leap Forward or the Tiananmen Square massacre. And guess what? It worked. If you look for the CPC, the majority of information about it out there is stuff that China has chosen to reveal about itself. Not third-party information, not researched information, self-funded, self-researched information that it wants the world to think about it. And that really helps whitewash the search results of the atrocities committed by the Chinese government. Now, just like I get bombarded with the Chinese teachers, which is whatever, that's harmless for the most part, a year ago I was getting bombarded with TikToks from Chinese people and Western people, actual English-speaking people, talking about how it's now xenophobic to use the term CCP, and you should replace it with the term CPC, because that's the correct name.
So, when referring to the Chinese government, it's not called the Chinese Communist Party or the CCP, it's called the Communist Party of China or the CPC. Most communist parties list communists first, like Communist Party of Cuba, Communist Party of Vietnam, Communist Party of the USA. And that's because communist is the part they're trying to highlight. And while nationality can be important, communist is the political ideology. Calling the government of China the Chinese Communist Party is a little bit of a red scare, but specifically because of their nationality thing. Regardless of intent while using it, it does promote xenophobia. And yeah, it's semantics, but, you know, just why not call something by its proper name?
And I know what the intent was, because it's just a few searches away to understand exactly why they did that. And that's the scary thing. Next thing you know it, Mr. Simpleton is telling his buddies at the bar, who tell his friends, and they tell their friends, hey, maybe that Xinjiang stuff isn't true. Hey, maybe there is no forced labor in Xinjiang, and they're just trying to control extremism in that Muslim part of China. Honestly, it doesn't seem like this low-effort propaganda has an effect, but I have seen it work. To be fair, you do get people who are aware that this is very much propaganda, and they troll some of these Chinese teachers by asking them questions about Winnie the Pooh, which, as you know, in China, it's it's illegal to make the comparison of Winnie the Pooh to the leader of China, Xi Jinping. But honestly, I can't even get through the distortion from that face filter that is warping time and space around the chalkboard. But then again, there's tons of people that are simply unaware that one of the most powerful countries in the entire world has employed, both directly and indirectly, hordes of people, both Western and Chinese, getting paid to change your mind about China, and then to downplay or erase its human rights atrocities. Directly influenced or not, meme or not, this greater campaign comes from the dictator of China himself in 2013, when the campaign of Tell China Stories Well was born, or in Chinese, 讲好中国故事. In this campaign, the propaganda arm of the Chinese government decided to spend billions, and yes, I said it right, billions of dollars on its foreign language media campaign, meaning languages other than Chinese, like English, with the sole purpose of spreading the Chinese government's influence, as well as changing the narrative that, in fact, it does not commit human rights atrocities. It is not a dictatorship. It is a force of good in the world, and most recently, that China is actually a democracy. And the West is pure evil and has overstayed its welcome as the world's leader. They are on YouTube, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook. Hell, they've even been recently taken down in Facebook and Twitter's disinformation crackdown. But the budget is there to make endless waves of disinformation keep coming. Hell, they even tried to hire me to spread disinformation about COVID. So as funny as all this is, seriously, the people that they hire, especially the Westerners, are hilariously bad. They are getting better. And while we're mostly just picking up on their failures and laughing at the humor of it all, we're not really paying attention to their successes. The war for your opinion is real, and unlike in democracies where you're allowed to form your own opinion, Beijing has one narrative that they want you to digest, and they get to use the tools of freedom of speech and freedom of speech platforms on Western internet to make you digest that narrative. And the narrative is that the Chinese government is the savior of the world, and that their existence of tyranny and authoritarianism is not only justified, but preferential to the freedom that you enjoy.